Welcome. Today I have something a bit different than my regular content, a bit of a story time. Many years ago, I had one of the rarest tumors out there, and I would like to tell you the story. While I tell my story, please enjoy the nostalgic visuals and sounds of me decorating a house in the original Sims. My biggest fear in this world is death. I do everything I can to keep myself safe and alive. Unfortunately, there are some things you cannot control. I lived with a life-threatening tumor inside me for a year and a half until I was able to have it removed. I had no idea of the journey that was ahead of me and how it would change how I saw my future health. My day started out early. I had a time I needed to be checked in at the hospital. What was a short car ride seemed as if it took hours. All I could do was think about, was I going to make it through this day alive? After arriving at the hospital, I was promptly checked in and given a wristband to identify me. This was to prevent any mishaps. Once again, I found myself waiting for what seemed like several more hours. My mind started to wander, and I began to think about how I even got to this point. Towards the end of 2011, I experienced my first panic attack. I had forgotten to clock out for lunch at work. I sat there on break, worrying, and suddenly my heart starts beating faster and faster. I thought to myself, why am I getting so worked up over this? After getting home from work that day, I decided to take a nap. I ended up waking up into what, to this day, was the worst panic attack I had ever had. My head was throbbing, everything was dark and blurred, and I had no idea what was going on. I remember thinking I was dying. All I could do was hold my head. Eventually it stopped, and that was the start of the year-and-a-half battle with this tumor. My anxiety and panic attacks got worse every month that passed. If I did anything to get my heart rate up, I would have a panic attack. After a few more months, I moved to Pittsburgh to start college. I lived there for almost a year, and during that time, my symptoms got worse. I would walk a few steps from my bed and my heart would race. And of course, I would have a panic attack. I had a new reaction as well. During the panic attack, I would have to vomit. On the days it was really bad, I would not even be able to get out of bed and would miss classes. Now, let's go back to when I was at the hospital. I hear my name being called. It was time for me to change into my hospital gown. I was put into a small room and asked to change. I had to put all my belongings into a bag and obviously take everything off, including all the piercings on my face. I even had to give up my glasses. The surgeon came in to explain everything that would happen. I would be taken back to the operating room and put under anesthesia. The operation would then take place and would last around 4 hours. Then I would be put into a room to recover for a day or so. So the surgeon left and I had to wait yet again. I thought about when I was in Pittsburgh and finally decided to go to the hospital to find out what was even wrong with me. When I couldn't handle these awful panic attacks anymore, I finally went to the hospital in Pittsburgh for a checkup. The first thing they noticed was my horrendously high blood pressure. I think it may have been 160/90. The doctor told me that they can start with tests that will rule out the most common causes of high blood pressure. I specifically remember telling him, as long as I don't need surgery, I'm okay with whatever it is. Things obviously didn't go my way. The next big test they did was an ultrasound of my kidneys. The nurse doing it had a student there watching, and I recall her saying to the student that I was an amazing patient because I had textbook perfect kidneys. Everything was going great until she got to the left side of my body. The nurse called another woman in, and the other woman looked at the screen and paused for a minute. She then said, "Does she know?" So, of course, I asked what was the matter, and all she said was, "There's something going on with the left side of your body." This wasn't exactly what I wanted to hear. The next test was a CT scan or CAT scan. This by far was the worst. They make you drink this liquid mixed into Gatorade. To say it was disgusting was an understatement. It was the worst thing I have ever tasted. Every sip, I gagged and tried to at least keep it down. Finally, after the CT scan was done, I was able to find out the cause to all of my problems. It turned out to be a Pheochromocytoma tumor. In most cases, this tumor grows inside the adrenal gland and is so incredibly rare that only 1,000 cases per year are diagnosed in the United States. I know that kind of sounds like a lot, but when you look at the amount of people in the United States, that's rare. It was so rare that my doctors at the hospital had never seen retest results like mine in their entire career. They arranged a meeting with the surgeon to better educate me on this specific tumor. The surgeon told me the tumor was 10 centimeters. They brought out a ruler and just showed me how long it was, and I told them, "You're lying." They reassured me that they were not lying. This was a large tumor, and the surgery was no small ordeal. Back in the waiting room, a nurse comes in to finally take me back to the surgery room. At this point, I was extremely nervous and emotional. The nurse tried making small talk and cracking jokes to lighten the mood. It didn't work. We arrived in the operating room and they moved me to the operating table. I was told they were going to give me anesthesia intravenously. The last thing I remember was just waiting to get sleepy. Unfortunately, or depending on the person, fortunately, it does not even give you time to get sleepy. You just go to sleep in a split second. The next thing I knew, I heard the chattering of voices and I started to wake up. Even though I woke up on my own, I was still hopelessly tired and kept snoring while falling back to sleep. I was not allowed to have any solid food at first. Sometimes I think that was the worst part of the surgery. With each meal, they gradually upgraded me to solid food. My last meal was whatever I wanted. I opted for French toast. My surgeon came in to see how I was doing and told me the surgery lasted 5 hours. He explained that my organs were stuck to each other where the tumor was. He also said the tumor grew so large because at some point it filled up with fluid. Once they drained the fluid, he was able to remove the solid parts of it. The 2 days or so that I was in the hospital recovering were just spent lying down on my back. I couldn't turn over because of the pain. I couldn't get up. The morning of the day I was supposed to leave, I felt so much better. I was able to walk, but I had to hunch my back over to ease the pain. I was picked up, taken home. After 3 weeks, I was 100% recovered. It amazed me how fast my recovery was. Within 6 weeks of finding out I had my tumor, it was gone. I never thought I would need surgery, let alone have such a rare tumor removed. The whole ordeal has had a lasting impact on me in a mental and physical way. After the surgery, I gained a lot of weight and fell into a depression that gradually got worse throughout the years and never fully recovered from. Having survived this situation, I gained a new appreciation of the health I have. There was a lot I could have lost had I waited to seek medical help, and honestly, the best case scenario happened. I am still alive and well today, and more conscious about my health and any sort of pain I might feel. And that's the story. It feels like a distant memory at this point, but I'm really glad I had these feelings typed up that I could recall. If you've had this tumor before, tell me about it. I'm wondering how different every situation is, but I appreciate you listening, and till my next video.